So I'm gonna have this conversation because I think it's funny. Uh, I had this conversation with my daughter a couple of days ago, and she like totally blew me away. She was telling me that what I told her about relationships really didn't factor in. I left some things out when I was explaining it to them when they were kids. So I want to go over the 10 things that I talked to my girls and all my kids about relationships. They were in their in high school days, and I was asked a question. Uh, you know, what would they look for in a good relationship? Because they was having problems, with boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff like that. And I would tell them about my time in high school and things that I did that really didn't apply to them because we looked at it a little bit different. But what I told them at the time too was that the person that you meet is not going to be the person that you date, won't be the person that you live with, and will never be the person that you marry. And what that means is throughout those different phases in your relationship, the person that you meet, um, that person, you get a good look at that person. You get a chance to meet that person for the first time, and you put on a smile, and you're trying to impress that person. So you're not really you. You're trying to be what you think that person actually wants you to be. You say the right things, you do the right things, you smell the right way. You're willing to go out your way to win that person over. That's the person that you meet. And you spend a lot of time in that. Guys always say, I'll never pay for a date. We always pay for dates, bro. It doesn't matter how you look at it, you're always going to be paying for going out on a date. Or at least back in my day, that's how it was. We always paid on going out on a date. But and the person that you meet to the person that you're dating. When you're dating, it's almost like the same thing. You go through this period where you look good, you smell good, you taste good, you say all the right things because you're trying to win this person over, or you got an agenda that you're trying to do. And it's the same way on both boys and girls, or men and women. You always, women say the right things, they do the right things to impress you, to get you there, to get you in the door. And same thing with men, they do the right things, they say the right things to get in the door, to make that first impression great. And then so now you're dating, and while you're dating, everything is open. I mean, you can ask the person, can you spend the night, or will you pay for a meal, or can we go here? You do all those different things while you're dating. And I explain this to my kids when, like I said, when they were teenagers, because I want them to understand, what I consider dating or having a relationship with somebody was like. Going from dating a person to living with a person is somewhat different, because when you start living with that person, you start learning about things about that person that you didn't know while you were dating. Like, my boyfriend only changes his underwear once a week, or he only washes his clothes once a month once he runs out of underwear, or he has a certain way he wants to clean the house. Especially if you move in with him, he might have one dish, one cup, one fork, one spoon, one knife. It's easy for him to keep up with those five utensils because there's only him. And as long as he don't have all that other stuff, he's not going to cook meals for guests or anything like that. So he might have put everything else away and only use those five utensils. But when you come into the picture, now he's got to double that, and you might want other dishes in the sink and stuff, or other dishes in the cabinet, excuse me, and stuff like that. And that brings on a nuance. When you start living with somebody, you start learning about things that you didn't know because they were trying to win you over. And while they were winning you over, they weren't telling you all the stuff. And that's when you have to start making these compromises. I was talking to my kids about compromises. Yes, when you start living with somebody, you have to start making compromises. You might not like how they cook food, or you might find out that they can't cook. I've had friends that have found out that the girl that they have met burns water. Yes, she puts it in the pot, she burns the pot, and she burns the water. I think that's kind of awkward or hard, but it can be done. You can burn water. You can just cook it until it's gone and then the pot is on fire. But it has happened to fellas and girls have found out that, again, guys do weird stuff. We're cavemen by nature. We're one dimensional. We have, and there are two dimensions to our one dimensional, right? We have the regular one dimensional, to where we do everything a certain way, and that's just the way we are. And then there's the angry one dimensional, where we get angry and we get one dimensional and we want to fight and kill everything. That's the caveman in us. But I explained this to my girls, what it meant, and also going from when you're living with a person and you've made these concessions. Now, that's another point, because I have to explain to my daughters that when you're living with this person and you make these compromises, remember that these compromises, should you go to the next level, these compromises follow you to the next level. And sometimes you can't change those compromises, because you start living with this person and you've made these compromises that this person sees that, oh, well, this person doesn't mind if I, don't do my laundry but once a month until I run out of underwear, and I don't separate my laundry because I just wash everything, the colors, the whites and everything together in one big pile, and that's the way I do my laundry. So you learn about these things while you're living with each other, and then you try to make compromises. Now, compromises mean that one person makes a compromise and the other one makes a compromise. You try to do it together and make it work. Sometimes it don't work out like that though. So going from being in a relationship where you're living with a person, and then finally the question gets popped and you get married. Yeah, there's a big difference. There is. Because once you get married, a lot of that stuff that you used to get away with when you were dating and living together, you really can't do it anymore, because you come to a realization that, hey, no, I'm not putting up with that, because you're mine. You're mine now. You can't go out there and play around and do all the other stuff or hang out with your friends. I learned firsthand that me hanging out with my friends on the weekends was not always a good idea, because I had a significant other, a loved one, who wanted to spend time with me on the weekends and didn't want to spend time with me and my friends. So we had to spend time together, which made me have to rearrange my schedule and how I lived my life, because I run off and play basketball and be gone all day, and that person be at home watching TV waiting for me to come back, and it might be 6, 7 o'clock, 8 in the afternoon, and then she think I'm doing something wrong. So when you get married, those compromises that you made when you were dating and living together, they don't apply. They really don't. So that's the nuance that my kids are going through, because my kids are starting to get married and have these real serious relationships, and I get these weird phone calls that basically go like, hey, you didn't warn me about this. I knew that there was going to be a change from meeting, dating, living, and marrying. I didn't know that those things were going to be so drastic. I just didn't have an inkling that would happen. And I'm like, yeah. And one of my daughters said, well, you left out a lot of parts in there. And I'm like, no, I didn't leave out a lot of parts. And this comes back to when I was dating. See, I told them about when I was dating. You meet a girl, you date a girl, you may live with a girl, you may marry a girl. And that's what it was like for me. I didn't have all the social media and telephone and text messages and all that other stuff that you guys have to deal with today. It was just real simple. And I'm old-fashioned. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I like to do things. I actually like to date. I was like the guy who would meet you, ask you out on a date, take you out to eat, take you out to a restaurant. We go to the beach or go to a park, go on a weekend on an amusement park and go do some stuff like that. Just dating stuff, getting to know you. I want to get to know you before I jumped into bed with you or find. I want to find out information about you before I got serious with you because I'm one of those people that I just can't do that. I feel like that's a waste of my time. So I'm old fashioned. I was old fashioned that way. So, and once I'm dating you, I'm not dating other people if I'm dating you. And I'll tell you, because like when I met my wife, I told her like, hey, if we're gonna be serious, I do have like people on the side, but if we're gonna be serious, I'm not gonna be messing with them. I've had people that I used to talk to before, but if we're gonna be serious, it's just me and you, and I expect you to be me and you. So if it's just me and you, then yeah, it's just me and you, and that's it. I'm old fashioned that way. I think I courted, how we call it courted. I courted my wife an entire month before we actually did anything physical or anything like that. I had to get to know her. That's just the way I am. So, but I found out because I asked questions. I found out from my godsons and stuff like that doesn't apply to them. They'll meet you Friday night, have sex with you Saturday morning, and won't remember your name Sunday, and don't even know who you are on Monday. And I also found out they don't like to kiss. I find kissing is a very, very important part of post foreplay or getting just being intimate with somebody. And they were telling me, ugh, kissing is nasty. We don't do kissing. I think, so you will not kiss a girl, but you want her to do other things. And you will do other things, but you don't do kissing. And they're like, oh no, we don't like to kiss. Kissing is, we don't know what their mouth doing. And I'm like, huh? It didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense to me because I really, me growing up, when I was growing up, girls like guys who could kiss. I mean, it was like an art form. If you were a good kisser, girls talked about, how well you were a good kisser. They would tell other girls that you were a good kisser. I found myself sometimes in corners in high school. Don't tell my girlfriend in high school this, but I found myself in high school where girls would try to kiss me because they knew I was a good kisser. So, but I don't understand, why guys are the way that I don't understand that part either. And sex is, I understand now that dating is sex. They get right to it. I don't understand. There's no courting, from what I understand. You can I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but and maybe they would give me false information. But a lot of guys don't do a lot of courting. They meet you, they get into it. They figure out whether or not you're good in bed or you're a good sexual partner, and then everything goes from there. I call that instant lust. It's like lust, and it's not a love. It's lust. Also, for me, I always found out that guys are like this. We don't normally fall in love with you. There's no love at first sight for us. It isn't. It's a lot of like and a lot of lust at first. And it's usually a year, maybe 2 years into our relationship with you that we actually fall in love. And then once we're in love, it's bad because by that time we've probably ruined our relationship with you. We've done some things that are pretty bad, and you either compromise to be with us to a point where you can't really stand us, and you were probably in love with us at one point, but you're not in love with us anymore. But we're deeply in love with you now, and we would do anything for you, and you're ready to jump out the window or either kill us. It's one or the other. But yeah, guys don't fall in love like that, So why it doesn't work today the way I would do a relationship. Why it doesn't work the way it does today, I think it's different. It's just the way I am. I'm old fashioned. Why do I think my daughters have a hard time with relationships sometimes? And my son, Um, I think it's because of the way I actually told them about what to look for in a partner. I think it's my fault. I put it on me that I raised my girls to think like boys, you know. So, you know, they think like men. You know, I told them as they were growing up that, you know, in order for you to be with a good man, that man needs to bring to the table what you bring to the table. He needs to have a car, a good job, his own place, his own money. When you want to go on a vacation, you can go, both can go on a vacation, but he has his money, you have your money, you can do your thing, or y'all do y'all thing together. But it's a you know, an equal partnership. You know, you come into it together as equals, not one having to help the other one, but you both got something you bring into the table, and that way, you know, one is not dependent on the other. I never want my girls to be dependent on any man. You have to understand, I was raised by a single mother. So a lot of times I saw her struggle. And the one thing I liked about my mom was that she didn't have to depend on anybody. She did it on her own. You know, she worked hard, had her own business, did her own things, made clothes. She, you know, she did all kinds of stuff. You know, she was very, very uh, uh, I would say, entrepreneur about how she raised us, things that she showed us that we need to do, you know, how we could take care of ourselves, and she wasn't dependent on any man. And I wanted that same philosophy with my girls. That hey, any guy that comes with you or want to be with you, they need to bring to the table what you need to bring to the table. And for my daughters today, it's really hard to find guys because my daughters are very successful. My son is a very successful person. You know, my kids are very successful people. So when they start looking for partnership, you know, to bring to the table that they bring to the table, it's kind of hard for them to, you know, find that person. Um, Another thing I explained to them was that relationships are not really 50-50. You know, a lot of people say, well, it's 50-50. No, well, if you're giving 50, what's happening to that other 50? That's all I'm asking. I explained to my kids that a relationship between them and their partner is that it's 100-100. You have to look at your relationship like it's a Fortune 500 company. You know, me and my wife look at our relationship like it's a Fortune 500 company, and we want it to be successful. We want it to be so successful, like we're making $1 million a year or $1 million a month. So we look at it as that, hey, you know, we got to get on our grind to make sure that we meet the expectation of our relationship. And our relationship is supposed to grow. It's supposed to be prosperous. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to be all those things. And that means we each have to give 100-100. It's like I'm the CEO and my wife's the president of our relationship. She gives 100% to make sure it's successful. I give 100% to make sure it's successful. It's no 50-50. It's 100-100. And I pass that on to my kids that relationships should be 100-100. That way, whoever they're working with, you know, they know that that person is giving their all, giving their best, bringing in the moolah, bringing in the money, bringing in the cheese, making sure it works really well, and they got a, you know, their relationship is growing. And again, if you look at it like a Fortune 500 company, and you want it to be all, then you put everything into it. I mean, you want to be rich, right? If it was a company, you want to make $1 million a day. That's how you have to look at your relationship. That's how me and my wife look at our relationship. We laugh, we joke, we say things to each other that other people look at us and go like, they're crazy. But it's all in how we do our relationship. So, you know, making it work. I say again, making the whole thing work is so important in a relationship. And, you know, how I explain it to my kids, well, you know, it works out and then it may not work out, but I think they're good kids. I think I did a great job. You know, there's a term that I always hear, or I heard my parents say to me, I did the best I could with what I had. So I have to live with that. But again, if you have this relationship talk with your kids, I'd like to know what you told them if they're teenagers or whatever. And you're probably going to have that conversation with them too. I don't know how your relationship is going or if you're even in a relationship. I just wanted to put it out there because I thought it was so funny that I had this conversation with my daughter, and my daughter was like ragging me. She was killing me like, Dad, you left out so many things in this. And I'm like, no, I didn't, because I'm old fashioned. And how I did my relationships and how I looked at them when I was growing up. And don't get me wrong. I wasn't the best boyfriend in the world. I'm telling you, I was probably one of the worst boyfriends in the world, you know. But as I got older, I started looking at things and what I wanted in a relationship, what I wanted in a wife, what I wanted in a girlfriend, and I came across this philosophy. So I'm just sharing this with you. My name is Terry Hayes. If you have any comments or anything, please put it in the comments. Let me know what you thought, and I'll be around.